Hey, 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 and hey. My name is Lee Matthew Jackson. You are joining me live in an effort to continue to do stuff that is unplanned, thus puts me on the spot. Today, I want to hang out with you and create an Airtable together. Just to give you a little bit of background, Airtable, which you can see just to my right or to my left, depending on your screen settings, is what runs our businesses. I've got two companies. I have Event Engine. This is a agency in the events space, and we do a lot of digital and physical event support. And then we also have Agency Trailblazer, which you are enjoying the content through, which is a digital agency. We provide lots of content and education for agency owners around the world. Now, we manage everything in our business through Airtable. Apart from email and apart from when we do documents, everything else is inside of Airtable. Many years ago, we had multiple applications, multiple tools. We had to integrate with multiple assets. It was really difficult for us to manage everything, and we would have to duplicate data. And when we discovered Airtable about two and a half years ago now, it absolutely changed everything for us. We've been able to essentially create our own applications, our own data storage areas, just in this system that looks like a spreadsheet but works like an interrelational database. I guess it's like a hybrid of Access database that you may have used back in the day along with Excel, and it works really, really well. So I just want to hang out with you. I have no plan whatsoever. This is the default empty version of Airtable. Let's switch screens to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it in more detail. And let's get building a very simple project management system. Spreadsheet system. Right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we want to manage our projects. And let's say that this is going to be a project management system that will manage multiple projects. So we want to capture the project information. So let's call this project. We'll leave notes in, we'll leave attachments, and let's leave the let's edit these statuses. So customize field, and let's just get let's add another one called planned. Then just move that one up. We can also add another date here. Let's add a date saying due or something along those lines. Due. And let's say we want the friendly date, and we don't need a time save. Okay, so we have a very basic view here, and let's add in just a couple of example projects. So Acme Limited website. And let's also have, I can't think of a company, Microsoft Limited website. So let's say we're building two different projects here. And we can throw in a due date for both of these. Let's say 25th of December, and let's say that one's the 21st of March. We can then put a couple of statuses in here. So we can say that both of these are in progress. Let's add another one, and let's just say that this one's done just so that we can see what this would look like. So let's just say we did a project with Google website. We can set the status done. Let's set this for a historical date. And then what we can do is, because we have this status, we can group this data into status. So we now have in progress and we have done or completed projects. If I was to then add a new project, so let's just add example project, and then just change this one to planned. You can see here, this is the one that we are now starting to plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work through this, but please do share comments on what you would like to see in this as I go. So I've got the comments open on my screen, and we've got one here from Pete saying, "Sup, bud?" And we've also got one from Jan saying, "This is probably the coolest, most amazing tool you've ever shown me." So let's keep going anyway. So we have our projects. That's kind of our central point, and that's where all the data is going to flow from. And that's where we want to do things like track time, track tasks, and also have a look at the overall schedule as to how it's going to be broken up, etc. So let's say for our projects, we like to break it out into sprints. So we're going to create a new section here. So create an empty table called sprints. I'll rename this to sprint. And, I can leave the notes, etc. I can edit this status to say in progress. Let's add a new one called pending. Okay, so for our sprint, we can start adding our sprints, but first we would need to relate that to a project. So let's relate the sprint to a project. Then let's add in a dependency as well. A dependency from a sprint is important because if we do sprint 1 and sprint 2 can only begin when sprint 1 is completed. It's kind of like milestones, etc. as well. So what we'll do here is we're going to add another field in. Whoops. Excuse me. Still like that. We'll add another field to the left, and we will call this. So it's a relationship. Or is it look at no what we're doing, we are looking for sprint, so link to sprints, so we're linking it to itself, dependency. Cool. So now we're going to type in sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. Let me then select the project, so let's grab one. It's not normally that slow, I think it's just showing off. Let's do Acme. And the cool thing again is we can do that exact same grouping structure. So we can group this by the project so that we can see it on a project per project basis. If this also becomes extremely long, what we can also do is duplicate the view, and we could call this Acme Limited. And then instead of grouping it by field, so let's take that field grouping off, I could actually put a filter in here and say only show it when it contains Acme Limited. So it's only going to show me all sprints that are for Acme Limited, and then I've got my view, and that allows me then to switch. That allows me to switch here my views. I've got my grid view, which is everything grouped by company, or I can go straight to Acme Limited, and I can create as many views down here at the left. I've also got different types of views, which I will show you shortly as well. So let's go back. So far, we now have the projects. We've got a status of the project. We've got when it's due, and we have any related sprints. So perhaps with those sprints now, we want to track all of the activities or the tasks that need to happen against those. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, let's add in the dependency. So there's our dependency. We're saying sprint 2 can only happen with sprint 1, etc. So we can add all in all of the relevant tasks. We can also do things like a timesheet, etc., etc. One last thing I need to do on here, by the way, is just put a due date. Probably have a start and an end date. Start date. Let's select date, and let's select friendly because I like friendly. And then, whoops, insert left, end date. Date. That's going to be very important shortly when we do our Gantt charts, etc. I'm going to get rid of attachments because we don't need that. Notes, I'm going to get rid of. We don't need that on this sprint because we would normally put the notes elsewhere. And then we have our start date and our end date. Let's just throw in a couple of dates in here as well, just for giggles, so that we are going to be able to do our Gantt chart later on. There we go. Cool. All right, so we've got everything set up. This is in progress, and these are pending. All right, so we're getting pretty far already, which is nice. So we now have project, we have the sprints, and we're now going to create the tasks or the activities that are going to go against each sprint. So tasks, here we go. And for the tasks, I probably want a collaborator. I think that's how you spell it. Collaborator, and I'm going to say that only one person can be assigned a task, although you can add multiple, and I can notify the collaborators when they're assigned the task as well, which is going to be super helpful because that will send them a message. So I've got my collaborator, I've got my status. The actual default status of this is fine. I'm going to get rid of attachments. I'm going to leave notes. I'm going to rename this to task. And let's just quickly throw in a few tasks. Setup hosting, setup, install WordPress. The cool thing is if you've got any templates, like anything from Excel, etc., you can paste all of these in as well, which is pretty cool. Or you can create templates from other Airtables and paste in or import, etc. So setup hosting, install WordPress, install plugins. So there's like the standard tasks that we would do. So these are all set to do at the moment. They're all going to be assigned to me for now. We also then want to put in, insert left, a due date. And we'll put that to friendly as well. You can tell I use this a lot because we just fly through building something like this. So let's put in our due dates, 16th. We'll just say they're all due on the 16th. Now what I want to do is I want to relate these to the sprint. So let's relate... Actually, should I relate them to this? Yeah, we should relate them to the sprint in this case. So because that way we can see what tasks are for which sprint. So link to sprints. So sprint... And let's say that all of these are for sprint 1. And I can see when I'm linking this, if I'm calling sprint 1, 2, and 3 the same thing for multiple companies, I can see which companies here anyway that I'm relating it to. So let's say all of these are associated with sprint 1. If I hit customize, I just want to disable it from being allowed to be multiples. Now what I can also do here is if I want to be reminded as to which project this is related to, I can do what's called a lookup field. So I can do a project... I can type in lookup field, and I'm going to say that on the sprint, I want to echo the project so that I can see what project this is related to. So now I've got quite a decent view here of tasks that are happening against each particular sprint. And if we go to sprint, you can see the tasks in here as well. So you can click on this, you can expand that, and you can see all the tasks in order, when they're due, etc., etc. So we're building up a nice picture. Now I might want to create a little bit of a view. So this might be all tasks. I might want to group all of the tasks by status or by sprint, etc. A limitation of Airtable, however, I found is that if you try and group by a lookup field, that stops you from being able to add new records. What I like to do is create a view per company. So I would say duplicate this view. And I'm going to say that this is the this will be the Acme Limited website, sprints, etc. And then I will go to filter, add filter, and I will say that the project must contain Acme Website Limited. That means that when I go to this view, I can see all of the tasks that are related to the sprint. However, I can still go to all tasks, which is great, and I can also create my tasks. So imagine that this is going to get built up of tasks that also has Larissa, Karthik, Tim, Cannon, all of those different people. So let's change one of these. If I want to just see my tasks, I can create another view. So let's duplicate the view again, and we're going to say my tasks across all projects. There we go. And then I simply go into the filter, add filter, and the collaborator is me. So now I can see my tasks. I can see all of the tasks related to the project of Acme Limited. I can group those as well by the sprint. So I'm starting to get a really good picture of what's going on. Let's change this one to sprint 2, just for giggles. Oh, hang on a second. All tasks. There you go. Back to, so there we go. We've got sprint 1, sprint 2. We can see our tasks. We can see who owns them. I can go to all of my tasks. I can go to all of the tasks, or I can just go to the tasks that are specific to the project. So you've got lots of different views that you can create. There's another view I'm going to show you in a minute, which allows you to kind of drag and drop tasks across, which is pretty damn cool as well. Now, one thing that I might want to do at this point is also track the duration, like how long these tasks are going to take me. And you can put in a predicted, and you can also record a duration as well. I'm not going to put in a predicted. I just like to record. We're interested in our business in recording what we do with regards to how much time things take, so that we can then understand what to quote for in the future. How long do certain types of exercises take, or how long are we spending engaging in certain activity, and is it even worthwhile, etc. So let's pop in a duration field. So I'm going to go up to the top here. I'm going to add this in and put duration. And there is literally a duration field, which is phenomenal. I'm going to leave it as default. I'm going to drag that. Let's drag that into just here for now. And you'll notice that it doesn't show where I've dragged it on these other two views. I mean, obviously, once you've built it, you've built it. You don't have to add more content as you go. I was just showing you as it goes. Now, what we can do here at this point is add what's called an app. And if I go in here and type in the word time, I can install the time tracker app. With the time tracker app, I'm going to tell it to go to tasks. I'm going to tell it to go to duration. I'm going to find the due. Well, that's the start date field, but that's fine. And then I can leave it at that, done. And the cool thing about that, excuse me, is I can start tracking. I can set up hosting, and now I can go off and go and set up the hosting if I want to. And when I've finished with that tracking, it will stop the tracking and it will update the record. Obviously, I only did it for a few seconds. Or alternatively, you can manually enter in how long things take. That's a very simple way of saying, all right, against a task that's against a sprint, this is how long it took us to do. And we can create timesheets and have timesheets related to tasks and have it on each and every day so that we can start to report on weeks and all of that sort of stuff. And we certainly have gone to that degree in our own internal stuff. For this example, I'm not going to go that far. I think that's a little bit too granular, but you could certainly do that yourself. So there's the time tracking app. Now, if we are building up a picture here of how long things are taking, surely that means we can report then on the sprints, and it's exactly what we can do. We can go back to the sprint here, and we can do what's called a roll-up. So let's say duration. And we're going to do a roll-up field here. And that roll-up field is going to be based on the task. It's going to be based on the duration, and we're going to sum the duration up. Save. Then what we're going to do is customize the format to make sure that that outputs as a duration. And now that we can see here, we can instantly report now on the Acme Limited website project. So here we are, Acme Limited. I've got all of my data. I can close that up. I don't need it right now. I've got all of my data. I can see all of my related tasks, and I can see the roll-up on those tasks is currently 4 hours. If Larissa then comes along during sprint 2, and she then starts to add some time of her own, so let's say she adds in 4 hours. I know this is extreme for installing a few plugins, but you can. We'll then be able to report that it's 4 hours of combined time for Lee's 2 tasks and the singular 4 hours, and then so far no time against sprint 3. What we can also do then is, if we really want to, we can roll up the entire duration. So let's do another roll up. And we can select sprints, duration, sum, save, customize. I always forget to go to duration. There you go. So now we can see that so far against Project Acme Limited that we have, just in my first spam on Twitch, Acme Limited has had so far the total amount of 8 hours worth of time dedicated to it. And I can also see who has been looking after those tasks, who's doing what, etc. And I can create multiple views. Now with this My Tasks, I might want to create a different sort of view. Maybe I'm more visual the way I work with my tasks. Maybe I don't like to work in some sort of spreadsheet. Excuse me. So what I can do is I can create a status Kanban. This means, and I just clicked here, it was a suggested view. You just click on Kanban and create the view. And what it's doing is it's using the status to then group our tasks, and then we can move them along the process. So I can now say that these 2 are in progress. I can just collapse this. There we go. And I can see here my essentially this is my stack. So I can move my projects along the chain. It's super easy. You can edit. I can send records in here. I can do whatever I want, rename, all of that sort of stuff to edit the default output that I just clicked on. But this is a nice and easy way of moving things through. So if I set up posting, I've put 1, 2, 3. I've put them in the 3 different areas. If I go back to all tasks, you'll see they've now updated. So if we go back to the Kanban and I move this over here and then go back to all tasks, you can see it's automatically updated. So you don't have to add any extra automation in there, and you can again do this or filter this view so that you're only seeing stuff that's yours, or you can see everyone's. So there's multiple views that you can create. And remember, when you create views, well, you probably don't know this, but remember for the future, you can create a collaborative view. That means everybody can see it, or you can create a personal view. So if I was to go back to my tasks, I can change this to be a personal view. So that means only I see this view as my tasks. And everybody else just sees all tasks, and they can have their own my tasks if they want to set that up as well. We've had a question, by the way. Do you think Airtable has the ability to offer an efficient tracking system for, say, testing? I think it may be worth us moving away from Excel. So, Facebook user, I believe it does. We can do timesheets in here and everything if you want to. So you create timesheets. I don't know when you joined us, but I was just showing you where you've got your tasks in here against a sprint. You click on here and you can start tracking the time. You just select which task you want to time, and then you get crack-a-lacking with your work. When you're finished, you can stop the timer, job done. So it does that. If you want to actually track who's doing what and when and what dates, then what you would need to do is actually create an extra timesheet and have those timesheets related to the task. And then be able to run your necessary reports against that, etc. So let's take a look. We have a very basic project management system here. We've got the project. We know when the project's due. We've broken our project out into sprints. We have our sprints. We know when they're going to start and end. We know what project they're related to. We know what tasks are going to happen. We've got our tasks. We've got our views on our tasks. And we're tracking our duration. On the sprints, we can see our duration per sprint. And on the project, we can see our overall duration, which is all great for reporting. Now, speaking of reporting on sprints, perhaps we want to provide a schedule based on this information. So let's go ahead back into apps, and we're going to install another app, and they've got a Gantt chart. So with the Gantt chart, it's automatically picked everything up, which is phenomenal. It's picked up sprints, it's picked up my start and end date, and it's also found my dependency field automatically. If it doesn't find it for you, then you just simply do it. It's you simply add those in, you just update these. You can recolorize, you can do whatever you want, but also you'll notice that I'd selected a date, which actually clashes here. That there is an overlap date, and it's highlighting that this shouldn't be starting there. It should be starting later on. The cool thing is here, let's take a look. If I just close this out for a minute, let's take a look at Sprint 1's date. So the start date here is the 12th of October. I can move this now to the 18th, and it updates the date here for me, and it also updates this as well to ensure that this flows. So now I can take a look at this. I can drag and drop. I can extend the dates. I can... So let's have a look. Can I? Well, I used to be able to. Yeah, I can. I can extend the dates here. I can make some of them smaller. I can move this back. I can essentially do whatever I want. It's a really nice, easy way for us to work through. And I've got my little schedule here then as to the process of what's going on. Other things we can do, I mean, let's take a look at the report just generally. There are all sorts of different items we can add. So if we are doing, say, a timesheet, we could actually do a visualization. So we could create a chart and showcase all of the team members and how much time they're spending, or look at all projects and how much time has been spent and what sort of activities have been spent, etc., etc. So there's a whole range of stuff that we can do. So obviously we've got our charts. I talked earlier about importing data. You can import data, but they also integrate with tons of third-party apps as well. A great example would be FormStack, where you might be creating a document from the data, so kind of merging it out from the data that's within your Airtable. If we just have a little look at the Airtable apps, there's a few extra items in here that might be of interest. So you can showcase certain records in the right-hand side. You've got your time tracker, your countdowns. You can send text messages. So if you're managing client information and you also want to be able to send text, etc., you've got all that sort of stuff in there. There are flow charts, which is relatively new and nice. That's built up based on the information that you've created. So if you're, say, doing a discovery and you're doing a stepped process, then you can also do things like displaying your flowcharts, etc. So there's an awful lot out of the box that comes by default with Airtable, but equally there are tons of extra apps as well that can just add a little bit of extra pizzazz and power to your platform. So this was just a short example of creating a small project management system. I've been going for about 25 minutes. I think it's worth us just having a quick experiment with a timesheet just for giggles. So what we'll do here is we're going to create timesheet. excuse me, we want to know who the collaborator is. So who is the person? Save. Oh, let's call collaborator. And let's make this super basic. Call this activity. Insert duration. Duration. So we can do, say, a timer. Insert left. Let's put date. And you could do start time, end time, so that people could, you could actually track the actual start time and end time. I'm just going to do this by date so we can group these time records by date. So, and then we would want to relate it to the relevant task. Okay. And then if we go into tasks, what we're going to do is we're going to change this field to a roll-up field. And we will say that we're going to go to timesheets, we're going to go to duration, and we're going to sum that up. So at the moment now there's nothing associated with that. Right, so now we're going to say, let's just say install, so we should put development. Duration, let's say I've spent an hour on it. And the date was today. No notes needed. It's assigned to me, and the task that I was doing was setting up the hosting. So I could now copy that, and let's say that I do kind of 3 lots of development, one of them being on, let's do a date in the past. Let's say one of them was kind of last month, etc. So we can now start to build up a picture of the time that I'm recording and what activities I was engaging with. You could even add categorization. That's what we've got internally. So we've got things like, is it a meeting? Is it development? Is it design? Is it project management? Is it admin? And a few other ones. And we select what it is. So rather than typing it manually, we just select what we're doing, what type of activity. And then the rest of the information is available on the task header anyway. So it's obvious what sort of task we're doing. So now we could maybe add in a few roll-up fields if we want to, but for us, this is a case of we're just tracking time and we can throw it in. I could maybe create, similar to what I did with tasks, I could maybe create some views saying my time sheets, etc. And then in the grand scheme of things, when I want to see this data as the manager of the company, then I might want to group all of this information, say by collaborator, and I could even go as far as showing a date range. So I could say for this week, I only want to see, I want to see everything from, I don't know, 1 week ago, which will be nothing. If I change it to a month, because I think I said September, so 1 month ago, will that show September's? Probably not. But you get the idea. I can essentially create any view that I want to, or just say just today's items, etc. So they're all available for you in here as a filter, and you can create those reports. You can also, though, create those sorts of reports over here. Again, you can use your charts, you can use documents. So for example, you could use the page designer here, and in the page designer, we've actually designed invoices, we've designed quotes or estimates, we've designed project project discovery documents as well, so that people can visualize what's going on. So similar to this, you see this kind of nice pictured layout document. We've done the same sort of thing. So you could just throw this in, select your data set, timesheet, thank you, done. And we could drag all of that information in. Or if we want to throw it as a grid, so that would be what happens per page. If we want to show this all as a grid, then what we can do is switch over to tasks. And we could, or projects. No, let's do tasks. Yeah, that's fine. I can go to tasks, and then I can drag in the relevant timesheet, and then with the timesheet, I can say what columns I want to show, so that I've got kind of this nice report. So per task, per sprint, etc. I can then start to build up a picture of what's going on and design some sort of layout, some sort of documentation that I can either A, review, or B, I can send out to a client as an end of project report to say, hey, this is everything that we did for you. Right, so we've got a use case. Project 1 has 3 steps, similar to your sprints and Gantt chart setup. Could you duplicate Project 1 for Project 2 client, change the start date, and still keep the order time frame from the original task? So the short answer is yes. You would... Oop, you would simply right-click and duplicate this record, for example. And then in the sprints, you can copy these. So you can right-click and copy, and you can then paste them, but change the company, the project that it's related to, and it'll still retain all the dates and the information. The only thing that it won't retain are the related tasks, unless you then go ahead and copy those. So it's not like a one-click. There probably is a way. There's lots of new tools, there's new automations that you can add that I've not really explored yet. So there's probably ways you can programmatically do that nowadays inside of Airtables. But if we've got something that's very similar, we just simply copy and paste the structure in as we go. And by the way, if you see Facebook user as your username, there should be a link inside of Facebook that you can click on to allow StreamYard to show who you are, so that I know who you are. But thank you very much, Facebook user. I'll find out who you are shortly. Just so you know, if you wanted to see on Twitch, in search of followers and prime views, then come and visit that spam. So that's my first official spam, and I don't know if this is going to show up, but Roby over on Twitch has just shared this phenomenal looking octopus. Question: if you have a group of octopuses, is it octopuses or is it octopi? Oh my word. Incredible. All right, folks. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been 30 minutes. I think that's enough for now. You kind of get the idea of what you can create. I would warn you then, this can become a monster if you don't clearly think about the views that you want to create and your workflow. You need to understand your business workflow, your project workflow. You then need to understand what data you need to collect, how you want to collect it, and how you want to view and also present that information. Once you've got all that written down, once you understand that, then design this. Otherwise, you will do kind of what I did, which was make it up as I go along, change a few things as you go along, have to undo a few things, move a few things around, and before long you might have too many views, you might have too many different types of content all over the place, and it just becomes a mess. I think before we go, I love pie. Thank you. So do I, mate. Octopi. I think before we go, I do want to show you one last view, two last views, just because we are talking project management here. Two last views. Let's just go over to sprints here, and we can create a view here where we can see when when sprints start and end. So if I edit this view, hang on a second. So let's edit description. Where's the? I haven't. Oh, using end date field. So if I change that to start date and end date, I can now see in this view when sprint 1 starts and ends, and this will update. If I was to change this, you can see that moves what's going on in that view. So that's something that's super helpful. But the other thing that you might want to do is, if you don't want to use loads of licenses necessarily, you for all of your collaborators, and what you can do is you can create a little drop down which shows all of the people who are collaborating. What you can do is then create a form for them to submit their time, rather than them having to have an account and having to have this view and having to be an editor. So you would just create a form. It's going to fill in all the fields for you. If you're on premium, you can hide all of that sort of stuff, and you can say what to do. I like to say show submit another response button, so that they can add multiples. And you can rename this to submit time. I don't know, submit time is fine. And then if I go to share form and copy, here we go. So I can say what I'm doing. I can enter my duration. I can select the date, type in my notes, and I can select my name off a list. I can relate it to any one of the tasks, and we can show whatever information we want to show on here, and then I can submit that. Then if I've got more time I need to submit, I can continue to do so. So this allows you to have third-party collaborators submitting information to you if you need to. And you'll see that gobbledygook has just appeared in this row. I think that was the last thing. And very importantly, Matt has come up with a point here. So the plural of octopus is octopods, although octopuses is acceptable. Octopi is incorrect. Latin/Greek origin thing. Matt, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. I assume you didn't Google that as well, and that just came naturally. So I appreciate that. I would have Googled. Right, folks, that's a wrap, really. Don't forget, we've got the podcast. Why don't we just show you the latest podcast? If I press this button on here, will it show me? Yeah, it will. Nice. So here is the latest podcast. I just want you to go ahead and check that out. It's over on agencytrailblazer.com, and we're actually talking about managing clients' expectations. It's really important that you do manage your clients' expectations. That's on a project. That's in your relationship in general. And the story I tell here is where clients kind of expect you to become the de facto IT department, and how you can manage that right from the very beginning when you're putting in your initial proposals right through to fostering and building a relationship with your client. So it's nice and short. It's about 15 minutes long, and most of the solo episodes that I do nowadays are 15 minutes long, just to give you an insight into what goes on in our lives, in our agency, what I've learned over the years. We also do have some great guests as well now and again. And if you want to be a guest, please tag me in the comments and let's get that arranged. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to honor Matt. Different Matt Davis, who said I always have to mention a pen at the end of my live streams. I'm not going to have enough pens, but this pen is from York Minster. There was a fire, and this is reclaimed wood from the fire of York Minster. I'm sure it was York Minster, and it's several hundred years old, this wood is, and it's a really nice looking fountain pen. Right, folks, have a wonderful day. Don't forget, if you can't be good, please, please, please be careful.